What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of WCG Radio, Windy City Gridiron's Bears podcast. With you, as always, your host, Robert Zaglinski. And today we're going to continue my 2018 NFL preview series with each of the Bears' 13 2018 opponents. We've already gone through the Packers, we've gone through the Patriots, we've gone through the Dolphins, and up next on the docket is the Jets, who the Bears will face this year's Halloween weekend. That's when Chicago will break out the orange jerseys. I know all of you are absolutely obsessed about that. I am nowhere nearly as passionate about. It's just a uniform, and I'm not really fond of them. But nevertheless, they're going to play the Jets. They might even play a rookie quarterback then. Who knows? To discuss this, to preview the matchup, to break down New York's 2018 offseason. Joining me, is Gang Green Nation's SB Nation's Gang Green Nation's MacGregor Wells. His byline on the website is Smack Dad. MacGregor, what's up?
How you doing today?
Doing well. It's very rainy here in Chicago, which it's actually kind of calming. It's not like nothing too heavy. I kind of like it. But I'm
beautiful.
How about you?
Sunny day, beautiful weather in New Jersey here.
Beautiful weather. Let's jump right into it. MacGregor, coming off of a fourth place finish, 5-11 season. I think for some people, at least what I see off of the national conversation, that kind of exceeded expectations what the Jets were supposed to accomplish in 2017. To me, and I'm going to kind of gauge this, it seems to me that in a year or two, the Jets should be in prime position to develop an actual AFC contender, especially with Sam Darnold now in the fold.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's perfect.
It's interesting that the Jets exceeded expectations and finished last.
Yeah.
That's a sad state of affairs. But yeah, it's all about the quarterback in the NFL. And Sam Darnold, depending on your point of view, could be the best quarterback in this draft class. Many think he might be the best quarterback in a few draft classes. We'll see how it goes. But it's possible that if Sam Darnold develops into the quarterback that the Jets hope he will, and they get a little bit more help on defense, they could turn into a contender. We'll see.
How far away in your mind? I mean, you can frame this any way you want. You can give me a timeline. You can say what else they need to do, how long this is going to take, whatever. How long do you think New York is away from working the AFC East? And because obviously this is a division that the Patriots have owned for a while, but it doesn't seem like they're going to last much longer with Tom Brady. It should be only a few more years. So what else do the Jets need to do to finally become that prime team?
I think they need to find a couple of pass rushers. They really don't have any. Maybe one more stud in the defensive backfield. Mm-hmm. and upgrade the two tackle positions on the offensive line. If those things are upgraded and Sam Darnold works out, it's a go for the Jets. But of course, we're talking about the premium positions. It's not exactly.
Yeah, the three most important positions in football. They only need two tackles, a couple great pass rushers, and they need Sam Darnold to be great. They only need that.
Exactly.
Moving over to Todd Bowles, he was kind of on the hot seat last year. I don't know if it was blazing or anything, but he needed to prove something with the Jets. Exceeding those expectations, having that 5-11 season actually earned him a contract extension. So my questions here for you are, so let's start with this. Would you have given him that extension, MacGregor?
No, I wouldn't have. I would have played out this season and see how it went. Todd Bowles has gotten the players to play hard for him. That's to his credit. But you've never really seen him. Sometimes you see a team just outcoach the other team, and you don't really see that with the Jets too often. He was also brought in as a sort of a defensive guru, and was sort of sold as one of the most creative young minds, defensive minds in the NFL. And his defenses have not been great. Now, he hasn't had terrific talent, but you also haven't really seen him scheme things to where, you say, wow, he really did a terrific job that day. So I'm not saying he's a terrible coach. I just sort of feel like he's a middling coach, and let's see how he does. Give him one more year and then reevaluate. Now, I would not have given him a 2-year extension at this point.
What beyond those concerns, so beyond him not living up to his original billing, why do you think the Jets did it? Is it as simple as him exceeding expectations? I don't think that doesn't seem like a very high bar to clear.
It seemed like they wanted to establish some stability in that, they had just fired a coach and a GM recently in the past, and they don't want to keep on doing it every 2 or 3 years. So it seemed like they felt like, okay, this GM and this coach have been okay. They haven't been great. They haven't been terrible. They've sort of been middle. And let them grow in the position, see how it works out, and let's establish some stability here. That's the only explanation I can give you.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that he could be the one to steward this defense into becoming a contender and to Sam Darnold becoming an elite quarterback? Scale of 1 to 10. 10 being obviously, absolutely ecstatic and like, oh, he's gonna absolutely do it, and then 1 like he'll be fired halfway through the season.
I'll give you a 6. I'm slightly positive on him.
Okay. Moving over, I've seen a lot of murmurs about Teddy Bridgewater being the talk of minicamp for as much as MacGregor. It's kind of ridiculous. It's minicamp season. People are looking for a story. Like no one's playing in pads. You can't. I don't see how anyone can properly evaluate anybody, even skill positions. This isn't exactly the most high intensive football. But it's reportedly I've seen that he's been playing well. What are your expectations for the formerly injured quarterback, especially in the event that Darnold doesn't start right away? Is Bridgewater that bridge? Is he a bridge with no pun intended that you feel good about?
If his knee is healthy, he's the best quarterback on the team right now. But we'll see if his knee is healthy. He's he had a pretty promising start to his career. Nothing, earth-shattering. He wasn't all pro or anything, but for a rookie and a second-year player, he actually did pretty well. They didn't give him a lot of chances in the red zone, so you don't see high touchdown numbers from him in his first 2 years. But with what they gave him, I thought he was a pretty good quarterback. And so, if he's back to what he used to be, I think he's probably the best quarterback on the roster and a perfect bridge for Sam Darnold. But that knee still has to. We'll see how it holds up when he gets hit.
How much stock do you put? Because I kind of just ripped it. How much stock do you personally put into any of these mini camp reports? Like, are you quietly getting excited, or like, oh wow, or are you just like, oh wow, great story, doesn't really mean anything?
I'm sorry. Could you rephrase the question? I didn't get that all.
So how much stock, like I just mentioned, I kind of ripped it. How much stock do you put into the reports? Is this something that you get excited about when you hear someone like Bridgewater playing well, or
no?
Are you taking everything with a grain of salt?
Well, the Jets had 10 OTA practices, and the reporters saw 3 of them. So you're talking about reports of 3 OTAs. I mean, how much stock can you put in that? Let's put it this way. If you had a regular season schedule and you had 3 practices lighting it up in 3 practices, and by the way, he only lit it up in 2. One of the practices he did fairly poorly in. So would you say, wow, I'm really excited about that? I wouldn't.
Okay. As far as Sam Darnold, so he's the future, right? He's obviously going to take over eventually. Do you start him day one? Why or why not?
Well, I think it depends on whether you think he's ready or not. I'd like to start him day one. I think the Jets would like to start him day one. Generally speaking, guys who are drafted as high as Darnold was drafted get to start very early. But Darnold is a very young quarterback with not a whole lot of experience, and he did get comfortable getting him in there. But yeah, I think everyone wants him to start day one. I just don't know if they think he's going to be ready for day one.
Do you think Jets are currently equipped to actually build around him? Because I'll be honest, I mean, I'm looking at the roster, trying to build up this preview, trying to build up some topics to discuss with you, and I'm looking at the receiving options the Jets currently have, and I tugged my collar more than a few times because this currently looks like one of the worse off receiving cores in the league in terms of, and it's not exactly an area for a young quarterback to particularly thrive.
Well, the Jets receiving core has been much maligned. I don't know if that's is very accurate. The Jets have a guy who's had 1,000 yards in the last 2 years, a guy who's had 900 yards in the last 2 years, and two guys that have had 800 yards in the last 2 years.
Who are these names? Just
the NFL has that. There's no team in the NFL has that coverage.
But who are these names?
The NFL has had. I'm sorry. Terrell Pryor is the 1,000-yard receiver. Robbie Anderson's 900-yard receiver. Quincy Enunwa and Jeremy Curse are the 800-yard receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And no team in the NFL has that. No team in the NFL has had four of those guys in the last 5 years. So, it's true that the Jets don't have that stud, that Julio Jones, that Antonio Brown, whatever, but they have a very deep core of four deep of receivers that are at a minimum wide receiver twos in the NFL. And at least Enunwa, Robbie Anderson have wide receiver one capabilities if things go right. They're young, they're developing, and I think they're very talented. So I disagree with the fact that not a fact, the opinion that a lot of people have that the Jets wide receiver core is somehow deficient. I think the wide receiver core is actually one of the strengths of the team.
I'm gauging here that to you'd rather have kind of the number twos and number threes the Jets currently have instead of an Antonio Brown or Julio Jones. Do you think that's more conducive for a young quarterback?
No, I don't. No, I mean, obviously, anyone would prefer to have a Julio Jones.
Yeah.
But when you about the Jets, maybe they have a terrible wide receiving core. They don't have anybody he can throw to. I think that's a lot of nonsense. I think they have a bunch of guys that are good receivers that are minimum wide receiver twos. And you don't see that a lot in the NFL. You see one wide receiver two, and a bunch of guys that are nobody who have Julio Jones or Antonio Brown, but I don't think it's terrible. I think it's actually pretty good.
How do you let's paint the scenario that the Jets do start Darnold day one. And I'm sorry we keep going through this, but he's obviously the primary story. I mean, you want him to eventually be the primary story, MacGregor. How do you ease him into the offense? How do you protect him? How do you get him comfortable? What would your kind of game plan be? What would your timeline be? How do you get him ready and comfortable in the league while he's kind of like getting that baptism by fire?
I think you have to simplify the offense for him a little bit. I think you have to start out with the things he's most comfortable with, things that are similar to the things he did at USC, and then bring him along slowly with more and more of the NFL playbook. And in this respect, I think he's going to be at a bit of a disadvantage in that the Jets are planning on a West Coast offense and a lot of play action passing, a lot of under the center work, and he really hasn't done any of that before. So I think he's under a little bit eight ball, and they're going to have to bring him along a little slowly if they're going to have to if they decide to start him day one. Hopefully they can have a strong running game where they don't set him up to a lot of third longs. But yeah, I think it's going to take a few weeks. Acclimated, depending on your defense for a little bit, maybe keep in some extra blockers and bring the passing game along slowly. Start him off with things he's comfortable with.
I know this is a totally responsible thing to ask in June. What would you gauge being the win difference between Bridgewater and Darnold? So if Bridgewater ends up getting majority of the starts, how many games do the Jets? What's the Jets' record? And then if Darnold ends up getting majority of the starts, what's the Jets' record?
Well, I think the abilities here, the possibility the Jets trade Bridgewater and McCown start the season. That's the number one. So we'll go through three different possibilities. If McCown gets the majority of starts, that would be in the beginning of the season. The Jets' schedule is actually pretty easy in the beginning of the season. And then if you switch to Darnold, you probably get something like 5 or 6.
5-6 wins, okay.
He's going to be struggling in the easy part of the season and then hitting the tough part of the season when he starts to get acclimated, where he's getting one after another playoff teams at the end of the season. So I can see it being a very difficult season as Darnold starts from day one. If Bridgewater starts from day one, if he's the same old Bridgewater he used to be, I could see from the Jets.
Oh wow, okay. What are these trade murmurs? Do you think there's a possibility of what could the Jets realistically get for him, and then who are some teams you're thinking about being a partner here?
I don't know that there's a lot of teams right now that need Bridgewater as a starter. So I think what will happen is, let's see if somebody is not as good as they thought they were going to be. Let's see. And then in sometime during training camp where they say, okay, trade him then, because Bridgewater's only on a 1-year contract, and trade him there for this year and the next year. He's not the future for the Jets. Sam Darnold is. So
right.
Nothing for him. I don't think it's easy to trade Bridgewater, because you're really talking about a couple of OTAs he looked okay in, but once you get into training camp and of course the preseason games, you showcase him, and if you get lucky and somebody has a quarterback go down, maybe suddenly his trade value is pretty high.
Okay. Interesting to know. I mean, when you have a starting caliber quarterback, it's always a good thing, especially if he's not the future, because you can kind of build up a draft pick, especially if you don't waste that draft pick. So nice little position there the Jets have. MacGregor, let's talk free agency. So the big fish, obviously, here, we'll go through everyone who the Jets actually acquired. But Bridgewater was obviously an addition. This past offseason, Morris Claiborne, former Cowboys cornerback, Isaiah Crowell, former Browns running back, Trumaine Johnson, probably the best or second best corner, definitely one of the best that was available, premier guy on a big 5-year, $72.5 million deal. Spencer Long, Josh McCown returning, Terrell Pryor, we already mentioned. Avery Williamson, who do you expect to have the biggest impact in 2018 and then beyond
that? Well, it depends on if Teddy Bridgewater is the starting quarterback. The quarterback.
Well, yeah, it always comes back to that. Yeah.
If he's the starting quarterback always has the biggest impact. So let's take the quarterback out of the equation. I think Trumaine Johnson is going to have the biggest impact because he's going to move Morris Claiborne off to the second cornerback position. And that's a big improvement for the Jets, because Claiborne is probably not suited to go up against wide receiver ones throughout the season. But if you put him on wide receiver twos and have Trumaine Johnson doing some press coverage on wide receiver ones, suddenly the Jets secondary looks pretty good. And if the two rookie safeties, improve a little bit, they were rookies last year, the second-year players this year. Marcus May and Jamal Adams, if they improve, suddenly you're looking at a pretty damn good secondary. So I think Trumaine Johnson is really key. We'll see if he plays up to his capabilities. I think he's a really good press corner. I think the Rams didn't play him in press as much as they probably should have. But it's always an adventure seeing how free agents pan out, because sometimes you think you got a good player and they just terrible in the new system. They don't fit well with the team. They don't fit well with the scheme. They don't fit well with the coach or whatever. And you think you got a great player, and you turn out to have a terrible player. But I'm going with Trumaine Johnson. I think he has a chance to make the secondary really good for the Jets.
Along those lines, the Jets do seem to be having quite the safety duo developing. We'll return to free agency in a second, but what's the next step for Marcus May? And then ideally, I would assume you want Jamal Adams to become an all-pro level safety. So what are the next steps for each of them, especially now that they're going to get to play with a premier cornerback like Johnson?
Right. I think Marcus May has to finish. He had a really good first half of the season last year, and he fell off badly in the last half. I don't know if he got tired or what. If he nagging injuries, I'm not really sure what happened. But he has to have a full 16-game season, because if he had a full 16-game season like he had the first 8 games last year, he's already there. But his last 8 games last year were not good. Jamal Adams was pretty much what was expected, but you're going to want him to make more plays. He was was very good at what he did, but he didn't make a lot of plays. He dropped a few interceptions. He didn't have a lot of sacks. I mean, you're not expecting the safety to have a ton of sacks, but he let people go. He had a few too many ankle tackles. I think Jamal Adams is poised to have a monster year if he can start to make a few more, big plays, which he sort of just missed last year.
Speaking of previously for the free agency, so back to free agency, Terrell Pryor was someone nice season in 2016, obviously a positive, but then he kind of struggled with Washington. But I mean, beyond disastrous year in Washington, this is a guy that was a former quarterback, but he's a fantastic natural athlete. So it's a kind of testament to him that he was ever able to really enjoy success with Washington, or rather in Cleveland. Jets kind of taking a flyer here on him, and then him being a number one or being the number one in their offense. What are your expectations for him? Do you think he can get back to that level in Cleveland with the Jets?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the number one in the Jets offense, but he could prove me wrong. I mean, he's certainly got terrific natural abilities. I think they're planning on him being a number 3 in this offense. The top 2, I think, are Quincy Enunwa and Robbie Anderson. Now, that could change. You go into training camp and Terrell Pryor is lighting it up. That this is a fluid situation because I think they have 3 receivers that are all similar in abilities. But Pryor's coming off a down year, so I'm going to slot him in at number 3 right now. Now, the thing about Pryor is he's sort of got criticized for having a 1,000-yard season 2 years ago, but being very inefficient, and that he had a ton of targets. He had something like 140 targets to get to those 1,000 yards. But what people forget is that the guy throwing him the ball most of the time was Cody Kessler, which is not exactly, they talk about wide receiver efficiency, but that all goes back to the quarterback, doesn't it? I mean, when Josh McCown was throwing him the ball for 4 games, he had 300-yard games, and he had almost a 9-yard per target average, which is enormous. Basically, he was an all-pro receiver with the 4 games McCown was throwing him the ball, and he was an okay receiver the rest of the year. Now, this year, is McCown going to throw in the ball? Is Bridgewater going to throw in the ball? I don't know, but certainly somebody better than Cody Kessler should be throwing the ball. So if his ankle is okay, then I think he's could definitely get back to being a monster receiver. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's anything etched in stone. He could wash out too. He's apparently had personality problems in both his previous stops, so it may be that he doesn't play well with others. I don't know, yeah, I think he's got the ability to be a number 1. We'll see if he puts it all together.
The best descriptor here is cautiously optimistic. I'm assuming.
Yes.
Cautiously optimistic. Okay. Let's jump over to the draft, MacGregor. We've discussed Darnold, and we could talk about him even more, but we'll jump back to him in a second to kind of give other guys a shine. I got to admit, I look at this class, and these are some guys that I actually liked a lot as sleepers. To me, the Jets only had 6 picks, so there's not much to choose from. But I think they got decent quality if they're prepared to develop them. I really liked Christopher Herndon in the 4th round as a move tight end. Nathan Shepard as a defensive tackle in the 3rd seems like a good slot. Perry Nickerson as a cornerback in the 6th. How do you feel about this draft class, and especially adding to the foundation that the Jets are already establishing?
I love this draft class, and
love it. Wow. Okay.
Well, for where they picked, I mean, they didn't have a ton of high picks because they spent them all on Darnold, but right. For where they picked, I thought they got excellent value. The only guy I would not have chosen if I was the Jets is Trent Cannon, who I think is going to have a tough time making it in the NFL. He's a scat back who really doesn't have any role, I think, in an NFL offense other than maybe returner. And so I don't know if I'd spent a 6th round pick on him because I'm not sure he's even going to be an NFL quality returner. But the bottom line is, what do we know? 3 years, it all changes, right? But right now, I like Nathan Shepard in the 3rd spot. He's dominated at his level of competition, which you expect him to do because he was playing a much lower level of competition at Division III. But he was enormously effective there, and when it came to the Senior Bowl, he dominated there too. So he looks like he has the talent to play in the NFL. And Perry Nickerson looks like an NFL a slot corner to me. Now, when we talk about what the impact will be this year, let's face it, the impact of draft classes, generally speaking, are almost nothing in the first year.
Right.
New Orleans Saints had a great draft class last year and they had an impact, but generally speaking, your draft picks don't have much impact the first year. It's the second year where you start to see it. So I think this year you're not going to see a lot of impact, but I have a high hopes for the future for these guys.
Besides Darnold, who do you think ends up being the best player of this class? But your bold prediction. We were going to put it on record right now. We're going to put you on the spot, MacGregor.
The best player or the best player of the Jets draft or the entire draft?
No. The best player of the Jets draft.
Best player of the Jets draft.
Besides Darnold.
I'm going to go with Perry Nickerson. I think he's a legit slot corner, really good. But we'll see. He's small.
He's small. Fits in well to that role though. I like to we've done free agency, we've done the draft. Now let's get to the actual Bears Jets matchup. They're going to meet in just before Halloween. Bears, I mentioned earlier, they're going to have the Bears will have their orange jerseys on. It's going to be a very spooky atmosphere. I'm totally kidding. It's not going to be like that at all. Let's start with this. Let's just format it like this. What should the Bears be concerned about in terms of the matchup where the Jets can exploit them?
Well, you already know what I think about the wide receivers. I think, I'll be honest with you. I'm not nearly as up to date on what the Bears have done as what the Jets have done. So I'm just going to do this from the Jets perspective. I think the wide receivers might surprise you. I think it. But the problem, of course, is let's say we have 4 wide receivers that can do the job in the NFL. The Jets are probably not going to play 4 wide sets very often. Probably not even 3 wide sets very often. So we'll see if those having that depth at wide receiver even matters. But the wide receivers could surprise you. And I think the secondary might surprise you. I think the secondary might give Trubisky a bit of a hard time.
Where do you think the Bears, what would you be concerned about if you're the Jets in comparison to the Bears?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Where can the Bears exploit the Jets? What would you be concerned about from the Jets' perspective?
Yeah. For the Bears on offense, the Bears and everybody else can exploit the Jets underneath passing game on offense. The Jets don't have anybody who can cover tight ends or running backs out of the backfield. That's the way to attack the Jets, I think, is they really don't have good linebackers to cover guys. And on defense, I think the Bears are going to have an ability to put some pressure on the Jets quarterbacks because the Jets offensive line is average at best and probably worse than average.
Where does Leonard Williams factor into all of this? How is he the kind of game breaker that can kind of tear the Bears? I'm not, because from my perspective, the Bears offensive line isn't. I mean, it's okay, but it's not elite. It can certainly fall victim to a talented pass rusher. I mean, he's certainly the best the Jets have. I'm guessing, correct?
Oh yeah, Leonard Williams is going to be key to the Jets pass rush. If Leonard Williams can't put up, double-digit sacks, the Jets are going to have no pass rush at all. And of course, he's never done that yet. I think he has the talent to do it, but he had kind of a down year in sacks last year with just 2 sacks. He had 7 the year before. But Leonard Williams is a very talented player. It's just hard to get a lot of sacks from the interior line position. So yeah, Leonard Williams is the key, and if he can't put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, I think the Jets are in big trouble because I just don't think there's anybody else in this team that is going to even come close to a double-digit sack season.
Outside of strengths and weaknesses, who's an underrated Jets name the Bears should remember or be wary of? Someone that we haven't discussed yet.
Bilal Powell. Bilal Powell is maybe the best player the Jets have on offense. He for whatever reason the Jets have never considered him a feature back, and I think they think he's too small to hold up to the pounding. But let me give you a stat that probably you're unaware about. Well, I won't speak for you, but just Bilal Powell has the highest yards per carry in the NFL for the last 4 years for any backs with 300 or more carries. Nobody in the NFL has a better yards per carry average than Bilal Powell, and nobody knows this. They think he's okay. So no, Bilal Powell is a very talented back.
Right.
He just doesn't get a lot of carries because for the Jets, for whatever reason, have always said you're not a feature back. I don't know why.
I'm not doing predictions for these summer preview podcasts. Those will come in once we actually get to the week of each of these games. But MacGregor, um, I'll do one prediction for you. So when the Bears and Jets meet, it'll be October 28th. It'll be week 8. Your prediction as to who the Jets starter is. Who are the Bears? Who are the Bears preparing for at quarterback?
Oh, I hate these. Here's the thing. Let me put this from a global perspective. If you go on the Bears websites, they'll take a look at the Jets and they'll say that's a win, right? And if you go on the
Right.
Jets websites, they'll take a look at the Bears and say that's a
Oh
win.
well, I wasn't asking for a game prediction. I was asking who the Bears are preparing for in terms of who's gonna be the Jets starter quarterback in week 8.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I think by then it's gotta be Darnold. I just you don't pick a guy number 3, trade away 3 second-round picks to sit him on the bench all year. I know it's possible. I just NFL doesn't work that way anymore, does it? Do any guys get picked number 3 overall?
Well, yeah, that was the situation with the Bears last year, especially with Mike Glennon having 10 turnovers in 4 games. Like, there's no reason to play a bridge, especially if the bridge is inconsistent. Like, you're drafting the guy to play, and the less time he plays in his rookie season, um, the less prepared he is when it's actually time to hand over the reins to him. Like, that was the mandate the Bears had. Like, I know there used to be an old school model of sitting the guy on the bench, and then letting him learn. But the best way to learn is to actually play. That's simply not a viability anymore. People have jobs in line, and quarterbacks can only get better by learning firsthand. So I mean, I totally get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they could surprise me, but I just don't see Darnold sitting for even half a year. I think he's by game 8 he's playing.
He's playing. So the Bears should be preparing for Darnold. A nice little first year quarterback matchup between Mitch Trubisky and Sam Darnold. Should be an underrated, fun game. Bears will be in their orange jerseys. Really don't know what to expect yet. The Jets will be working in a young quarterback, and the Bears will be in a new offense. But should be a fun game at the end of October. MacGregor, as I've told you in the pre-show, like, finish these off with a little non-football discussion. Incredibles 2 is out, or it's very new release. It's a sequel to one of the most popular Pixar movies of all time, The Incredibles. They probably, at least in my mind, in my opinion, the most innovative animated feature film company. They haven't really done too many new ideas recently, but the quality they put out is unmatched from my perspective. So my question to you is, and I will let you finish. But I'm going to pose the question to you so you can think about it if you haven't. What is your favorite Pixar movie and why? So you think about that while I discuss mine. And I think from my perspective, it's definitely Toy Story. I know it's the first movie that Pixar put out. I know that was their inaugural thing, so that's an easy answer. But I just think it's the perfect. I think it's the perfect animated movie. I think it's perfectly paced. It's well written. It's got a stellar voice cast: Tim Allen, Tom Hanks. I think the story that you can relate, almost anyone can relate to it. Like your toys coming alive and being relatable to that being relatable as a child, and it's still holds up. I mean, it came out in 1995, and it still holds up so well over 23 years later. So, um, I don't think any Pixar, perhaps really only The Incredibles, can touch it in terms of quality and originality. Like Toy Story to me is the perfect animated movie, and it's the best Pixar movie by far.
I think Toy Story was a great movie. Gonna go with The Incredibles. The Incredibles did things that I hadn't seen before in an animated movie, and I just love the sort of the message that they said that if everybody is special, then nobody is special. And I thought that was really sort of an interesting take on the superheroes and how maybe we need superheroes in the world, maybe we don't. But if everybody is, when you tell everybody, yeah, you're so great, you're so special, like somehow, this whole self-esteem movement and that took off 20 years ago, whatever. Everything they do is they go to the bathroom. And it's like, wow, wasn't that terrific? You know, not everything is terrific. Some things are just okay.
Right.
And Incredibles, I thought, had an interesting message where it's like, no, not everything's special, not everything's super, not everything's incredible, but The Incredibles were, and I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I like that. I like that morale. Not everything is special. Not everyone is special, and that's fine. It's what you make of it in that scenario. I think it's an important message. I think each Pixar movies, and we're not going to get into it. Obviously, we're not going to do a 40-minute Pixar podcast, but they always. I think the best thing that Pixar does, they always know how to tell a story and know how to convey something important about some kind of like real life social issue in a fun way, in a fun, funny, and entertaining way. I mean, The Incredibles is an example of that. Toy Story is an example of that with your childhood. Um, I haven't seen Incredibles 2 yet, but I imagine it's a similar story and a nice evolution from the sequel 14 years ago now. I mean, I can't believe it took that long, but I'm pretty excited about it. Really good choices. That's probably my number 2. I appreciate that opinion, MacGregor. That is,
my son is now 14 years old, and he's actually begging me to take him to The Incredibles. I was so surprised. When you're 14, you don't want to go to these things anymore. But he loved it so much, he wants to go to The Incredibles too, which it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think, and pun intended, he thinks it's incredible, right? Ha ha ha. MacGregor, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you offering the Jets perspective. Really nice talking to you. Hopefully, maybe I'm speaking too far in advance, but we can do this once the actual game comes along and we have a little more information to work off of away from the offseason. We have more concrete football stuff to discuss. Would be fun.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Thanks a lot. And good luck to your Bears this year.
Yeah, good luck to yours too. Good luck to your Jets. Hoping I'm someone that I'm a known Patriots hater, so hopefully they at least get one over New England, maybe surprise some people. So 100.
Known Patriots hater, we're fast friends.
Yeah, definitely. He is MacGregor Wells. He is a managing editor for SB Nation's Gate Green Nation. His byline on the website, in case you're not familiar, is actually smack dead. Offer great perspective. Follow along with his work and everybody and every other talented writer there at Gang Green Nation at SB Nation. A lot of great Jets analysis and writing and overall content produced at that website. Overall, follow us on Twitter at WC Gridiron. Follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski. We're continuing the summer preview series. We're a month away from Bears training camp. We're almost there, guys. Trust me, almost there. About 8 opponents in through for Chicago. At any rate, hope you enjoy. Hope you enjoy your week. Hope you enjoy the next few days. And stay classy, everybody.